You're listening to another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass. I'm your host, Jason Swenk. On today's episode, I am bringing back Jeff Hilimire. He was my second interview ever on the podcast. And today we're going to talk about the 3 biggest mistakes he made in his new agency. And there's a recurring theme, and I think it could help you all out. So make sure you definitely check it out, and make sure you listen to the very end. Jeff is doing an amazing cause helping out charities, 48in48.org, so make sure you check out that as well. Hey, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, man. Well, so you were guest number 2, so thank you very much for coming back. I can't believe it's been 3 years, so...
How many have you done in that period, would you guess? Or
over
do you know?
200.
Wow, dude, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and the crazy thing is as of right now, we get over 10,000 downloads per episode a month.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Congrats.
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
great.
Well, it's all because of you. You were my guest number 2, right? And you propelled it. And
hey, look, another 10,000 after today.
There you go. I know. There we go. So for people that haven't watched, and if you guys want to listen, go back to jasonswenk.com/2. You got to go way back, but it's definitely a good interview, and you'll see the video quality we upped the game a little bit. But for the people that haven't listened or don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I grew up here in Atlanta. I went up to UNC Charlotte to play tennis for college, and met my roommate Raj Chowdhury in our dorm room, and we started building websites. We started our company together in college called Spun Logic in the dorm, and then moved back to Atlanta. Ran that for 10 years. We got to about 75 employees. Sold it to a private equity group in 2008. So 10 years, 1998 to 2008, Spun Logic. Then the private equity group that bought us merged us with 2 other agencies and created Engage. So then I stayed at Engage, ultimately as president, helping to run the company with the CEO for 5 years. Engage was 40 million revenue agency, mostly social and digital by the time we sold to Publicis in 2013, which they merged us with Moxie here in Atlanta. So all my team went to Moxie, and then I started Dragon Army. Dragon Army were three and a half years or so in business. The first year and a half, it was mobile game studio, mobile apps and games, but pretty quickly became just games. I was interested, having had 15 years of agency life. I wanted to try to build my own stuff. So I launched 4 games in an app in that year and a half to 2 years. And then I added the agency side of Dragon Army. So today, 3.5 years in, we're approaching 25 people, mostly all focused on the agency side, which is focused on mobile and innovation with big brands. And then we still tinker around on the studio side, but the idea is to build that back up over time so that we have a fully running agency and studio model.
Awesome. So how has it been the second time building, Dragon Army up from, and kind of pivoting a little bit from the game studio to an agency with everything you knew? Like literally you started from zero with, Spun Logic, and then you were acquired, and then you ran the big organization, and then you were acquired again. So obviously, a lot of times I always ask, like, what would you do differently? So what did you do differently in building Dragon Army?
Yeah, the interesting thing is, so this November I'll have been, let's see, I guess 19 years in sort of entrepreneurship or running companies. In the last 3.5 years at Dragon Army, I've made 3 of the biggest gigantic mistakes of my entire career. It's unbelievable.
It never stops.
You think you're getting better, and then you just make. I think my propensity to make bigger mistakes is new. My first, when I was just a kid, 21, 22, building Spun Logic. So when we made mistakes, they were tiny because we didn't have capital, we didn't have any. We weren't working with big brands at that time. So it was sort of a lot of little mistakes. Now it's like I just make big, hairy mistakes now.
That
So
means you're
I would
taking
say
big risk, right?
that's right. Yeah, but I guess I need to slow down. It's working out now, but it's been a more difficult ride than I thought for this last 3.5 years. That's for sure.
Well, can we talk about one of the mistakes or some of the mistakes?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, if there's one thing that I'm good at, it would be building an agency. That's the one thing I've done. Um, and when I first started Dragon Army, that was on the table to potentially make it an agency, and ultimately decided to do the studio. Um, if I had done the research into how difficult it is to launch games in the App Store, which is super difficult, um, I would have started the agency at the same time. That was the first, probably biggest mistake. Is had I done that, we'd still have the studio side running because I would have been able to build up revenue coming in. So for a year and a half, we essentially had no revenue, and an expensive team. And that was the first time I'd ever had that. I put money in, some investors put some money in, so that money went away pretty quickly. So that was the first big mistake, is I just didn't have the long-term vision of the company, and I didn't do the research into a new industry that I was moving into to really understand that that should have been the plan from day one, not a year and a half in. So it's fine. You live and learn, but that honestly probably set me back 2 years in Dragon Army.
Gotcha. And what was the second mistake? Because I totally get, like, I remember when I sold my agency, I was like, dude, the grass is greener on the other side. I'm going to develop an iPhone app that takes pictures of everything I eat and gives me a visualization. And Instagram just got bought for $1 billion, so why can't I? And
Yeah.
literally, I started doing it, and I go, I hate this thing.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I'm gonna water the grass on my side already. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the second big mistake was early on into Dragon Army, we effectively acquired um, a game called Robots Love Ice Cream. And again, it was my lack of knowledge of the industry and my lack of research that made me go all in on this game. And it's not that it was a bad game. I still actually think it's a great game and a great concept. But whereas I was led to believe it would take a couple months to get it ready to launch with a few people, it took, I don't know, 9 months with 8 people. I mean, it was ridiculously bigger than I think everybody thought. And so, I think had I done the due diligence to research that, hey, who's that?
that's midnight. Here, everybody say hello to midnight. There you go.
Midnight.
Cats go viral, right?
That's right. You did that on purpose. You've got someone standing to your right that's just like, all right, time to open the gate.
Cue the cat. If you guys aren't watching the video, you're just listening to the podcast. A black
Yes.
cat just walked across the screen, so hopefully we don't make a fourth mistake for you. So
Dude, this is big time. Yeah, that's scary. So, anyways, I just didn't do the research. I could have had a credible developer that was impartial to this particular game look at it, and probably he or she would have said, "Yeah, it's just going to take a lot more work." And so that was that. That we just put all our eggs in that one basket for a solid year almost, and that also was a big mistake because it made no money.
gotcha. And what's number three?
Hmm. There's a theme here. So we acquired another company when we decided to start the agency side of the business. And again, the due diligence that I did not do. A great agency, a great company, great leadership. Like it had all the things, and I had worked with some of these people in the past, and all great. Like the work they were doing was great. Unfortunately, the finances of the business were upside down, and it just was a sort of a mess from an operational perspective from that. So it's like checked all the boxes except that one that I thought I had the right information. I didn't. And that also, again, that was, I'm going to be paying for that mistake for years. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha.
It all will work out. But again, the theme I think is you like to get to a point where you trust your gut and you can move quickly. And I think that works better on smaller decisions. And I'm learning that bigger decisions need more time and more thought and more research.
Yeah, yeah, I'm kind of the same way, Jeff. So, and I think it'll help you out in the long run because I don't have hesitation. I don't think you have hesitation either. It's kind of like
Yeah.
you see something you want and you're like, boom, right? I'm going to go do it. And, when you get at a bigger scale, sometimes it can bite you because you're just like, oh, I don't need to do the numbers. Like, or, and I also like to think, and it goes back to, what Steve Jobs said a long, long time ago. We operate as the biggest startup in the world. And I think they kind of took out the money equation. I know, like, once you have money, it's easier to make decisions, but I think it's easier to lose it.
I think
Right?
you're 100% right. 100% right.
And, I think the theme is like the due diligence and kind of hold back a little bit. And that's what I'm going to take away from this is be like, all right, I want to jump into this. I want to buy this, or I want to go do this. Let me think about it. And I'm always telling my team, like, hold me back just a little bit. Like literally I'm like that dumb dog on a leash that like trying to attack the car tire running down
Yeah,
the
right.
road. I'm
Exactly.
like, hold me
I
back.
think, one of the things that Lincoln supposedly did is he just like stalled and delayed on any big decision that needed to be made. And part of that was he figured that things would work itself out. Um, and part of it was, I think, to just give yourself enough time. So now, although I can't say that I've had the opportunity to make another big decision, like those were three moments where there was a big decision in front of me. Right now, it's again a lot of little decisions as we grow the company. So fortunately, the mistakes are going to be smaller, but I am trying to be more disciplined about taking my time with decisions.
Yeah.
Like you said, you live and learn. You
Oh
get better
yeah,
and better.
always. How has the agency space changed? Just even in the 3 years since you guys sold Engage.
Yeah, the agency world goes through these evolutions of consolidation and expansion. And so you're going to have, at any given time, a bunch of specialty agencies pop up because there's a new area that needs to be taken advantage of. And then you have the larger shops or the full service shops saying, oh, we can do that. You don't need to go to a specialty shop. And then you have the clients saying, this week saying we want one agency that can do it all, and next week saying we want specialty shops so we get best in class. So it's always going through that, and I think there's been a consolidation since the last 3 years of essentially Publicis owning Atlanta, Moxie, Digitas, Razorfish, Sapient. I mean, just alone, those must be 80% of Atlanta's digital firms. Like it's really impressive what they've done to own Atlanta. So you've seen consolidation. I think the real opportunity is in innovation and technology, and that's why we focus there as an agency and are deliberate about not taking on social media as an example. Like our team could do that kind of work. We've sold that kind of work, but I know if we get distracted with that, we're not going to be thinking about what's coming next. And the trick for me has been working with clients to get them to understand that a shop like ours is going to be infinitely better than their current digital shop at innovation and technology and mobile. But that's an education process because they're not looking for that right now. We're a little ahead where at Engage, we were pitching social agency a record and we were winning a lot of those because clients were looking for that. Right now, there's just not a lot of clients saying we need a mobile or innovation partner. They do need it, but they don't know it yet.
Well, I think, but it kind of goes back to that great phrase by Gretzky, right? Skate where the puck's going to be, right? And you're making decisions based on the future, not just today, right? And you guys have the affordability or the long-term vision in order to do that. I mean, that's the same reason why I did this podcast 3 years ago. Dude, when you were on,
Yeah.
like no one listened. Like there was like 10 people, right? Like
I listen once a week still.
there
To
you
my
go.
podcast with you.
So you were all the 10
I was.
back then. But I knew that because I just started podcasting and listening to things. I was like, man, this is going to be big. The same thing of why I'm vlogging every day and literally walking people through. Like it's all about documentation. Like we're skating where the puck is going to be.
Yeah.
And
I love what you did, by the way, just because podcasting wasn't new. You saw that it was going to be an important medium for probably lots of reasons, and you placed that bet, and it sure worked out. And Serial popped up and stuff. That's really changed everything. Whereas, mine is a little more obvious. It's like everybody knows mobile's where things are going. I think you did a really interesting thing there.
Yeah. Well, it's, we try a lot of different things. Like not all the things work. Like I remember trying, what was some of the things I tried? 1,000 things, and they
Yeah.
just crashed and burned. But everybody just remembers the highlights and the things they can actually see now. But what I also like what you did is you specialized, and that. And I think so many agencies have a hard time with that. And it goes back to like, I beat people up that say they're a full service agency, unless you are like the Moxies of the world, right?
Right.
But the thing is I find with the bigger companies, like my first job was with Arthur Anderson, right?
Oh, yeah.
Huge paper shredding company, right? And so we always joked that the partner would sell the deal, and then the school bus would drop the kids off, right? And these kids weren't, they like, and I was one of the kids. Like literally, they were billing me out at like $300 an hour. I didn't even know how to program. I was horrible.
Yeah.
And so that's how I look at a lot of the bigger guys. And I look at some of the small guys and going, look, you guys have a huge opportunity ahead of you. If you specialize, you're going to separate yourself from all those Me Too agencies out there.
Yep. I totally agree. I absolutely agree. I think as long as they know how to sell, which is the toughest part, like when I talk to small agencies, the trick is you've got a leader who is it's still the best at several things at that company, and it's hard for them to let go. Fortunately, at Dragon Army, I can't do anything. Like I'm the worst at every single role we have. So nobody even asks me, and I don't volunteer to do any work, which allows me to focus on growth, right?
Yeah.
If you're a specialty agency, growth becomes harder and more important because you can't just sit down with someone and say, what are you struggling with? And no matter what they say, you're like, well, we can help you with that. My career up until Dragon Army was saying yes to anything somebody said, and then we'd figure it out.
And that worked.
That did work, yeah. And so this is very different for me to focus. Actually, Raj Chowdhury and I, it was amazing. It was like the first year of our small agency, Spun Logic, and we watched there was a dramatization of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and I think Noah Wiley or something played one of the roles. but it went through the story of how Bill Gates essentially went to IBM and said, hey, we've got this software called, I don't even know if it was called Microsoft at the time, but basically they had the software that could run the OS. And IBM said, great, let's do it. And then he walked out of the room and was like, all right, we got to create the software now. He didn't have it. And it was like a light bulb went off in our heads. I think we pushed pause on the VCR, which there were VCRs back then.
Yeah, for the kids listening, they're like, what is that?
Yeah, it's a tape. And then we literally called it gatesing from then on. We were like, yeah, because until then it was like, well, if we can't do it, we can't sell it. And then it flipped to we can sell anything as long as we can work our butts off to figure out how to do it. And we called it gatesing. Now I'm doing the opposite. I'm sort of saying no to lots of stuff because I want our team to develop in the right way.
Yeah. Do you think you can be more profitable that way?
In specializing or not
In
specializing?
specializing.
It's tricky for me to say that because we're in mobile and technology, and so we have very expensive people. I was meeting with a friend of mine who runs a more socially oriented agency, and they have much cheaper people, so they can be more profitable. So I think you can, because you can optimize more, obviously, and focus, and you're probably going to win more pitches you go in because you're so good at that one thing. But depending on the type of company, again, we're just naturally not going to be quite as profitable because we need really experienced people to do the stuff that we're doing.
Yeah. What is your role? Like, what should the role that an agency owner is listening to right now that is doing a lot of client work, that is, really in the weeds? What should they aspire to do? Like, I look at it as they're an agency owner, they're not an agency CEO. Mm-hmm. So what's kind of the transition, or what would you tell them, or what would you tell yourself many, many years ago?
I think so. I was always that way. So I didn't really have that problem. I was happy to delegate, and that's one of the things I did good in my career was delegate and get out and try to sell. I think it depends. The first question would be, what's the big goal for your company? I think 50% of the leaders of small companies have no idea. So that's different. So if you said, hey, I want to build this great lifestyle company, which there's nothing wrong with building a lifestyle company that supports you, your family, it's great culture, like that's different than if you said, hey, I want to sell in 5 years. So if it's a slower burn, more focus on keeping the team together and growing 10 or 20% a year, I think the CEO can actually be more involved in the business. If your goal is to really push it and grow it to sell, um, then I think they need to do everything they can to get out of the weeds. Probably the first thing is finding someone on the operations and sort of almost like a president role that can run stuff so that you can be out. And in the agency business, my belief is it's networking and relationships are huge. Sales is tough, so the more the CEO can be out and about meeting folks, I just think that's the biggest thing they could do.
Yeah.
Would you like to grow your agency 3 times faster? Would you like to work directly with me where you can ask me questions and I can give you the answers that you need so you can grow your agency faster? If so, I want to tell you about the Agency University. We're getting ready to open enrollment again, and you have to request an invite if you go to agency.university. Now, Agency University is an innovative mentorship where you get to work directly with me and we send you the resources and support you need in order to grow your agency. So if you want to know more, go to agency.university.
I truly believe that they need to be the front face of the agency and be out
Yep.
there creating videos, creating content, like making them aware. I
Thought
mean,
leadership. Yep.
like
Totally.
exactly what Gary Vaynerchuk's doing. Like I always use that as an example, but that's usually the best example. Like literally, that guy is out there, and
Yep.
it just really driving everything. And then the other thing I look at it is kind of really setting the vision and communicating that to the team. Right? You said like a lot of agency owners, 50%. I would actually think that's probably more. They don't know where they're
Right.
going because
Yep.
think about like how we started, right? Like you and me have similar stories where we started
Yep.
because we knew how to do something cool. Someone said, I'll pay you for it. And we're like, cool. And then like for a couple of years, we probably didn't have any clarity of where we wanted to go. So
Yep.
then like I didn't know how to communicate that to the team. And then that made that team come to me all the time saying, hey, Jason, what do we need to do? I'm like, dude, just make this decision. But it was my fault because I didn't communicate what we were doing.
Yep. Yeah. So one of the things I'm doing different this time around with Dragon Army is that I'm very clear and I communicate the heck out of it, what our vision is, what our values are, and what the tenets we're focused on in order to achieve our vision. Um, I say it all the time. Our company meetings are driven around it. We have awards based on our values. If you go back to either Spun Logic or Engage, a lot of people who worked at either of those agencies will say, awesome culture, loved it. I hear that all the time, but you couldn't ask them what our vision was or our values. They would have no clue. So I think this time it's more important to me that that's clear and driven. And it is partly for the ability to grow, but I also think it's just a maturity in my part in leadership to make sure that's front and center.
Oh, big time. I mean, I always use the example of Zappos, right? I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think they're one of the best at that. I mean, they're just like, we want to deliver happiness and we
Yep.
sell shoes. I mean, like,
It's crazy, right? It
but
shows you that anybody can do it.
exactly.
If you're just selling shoes, but you can have this vibrant, amazing culture. One of the other things I love that they do is I think it's once a month or so, they make everybody in the company have to work customer service on the phones for an hour, for a day. I don't know what it is, but like that keeps people connected to the customer. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. Well, tell us about this great initiative that you guys started maybe 2 years ago, the 48 and 48. Tell us a little bit
Yep.
about that.
Yeah, so I had over the years, mostly at Engage, I realized that um, I would bring in charities and nonprofits into the company for team building, for us to give back and stuff. And it was always not, it was services we were providing that weren't related to the actual skills that the employees had. So we would go wrap presents, we would read to kids, which is all needed and great stuff. But then having been on boards of nonprofits, I realized that they all need digital help. The nonprofits do. And I've got a friggin' huge team that could do that, but I could never put those pieces together. So I tried a couple things over the years, tested them. They didn't really work until I landed on this idea of 48 and 48. So the concept was, can we put together a hackathon and build as many nonprofit websites in a weekend as we can possibly do. So this was beginning of 2015. Once I had the idea, I roped in Adam Walker, who's the CEO of Sideways 8, who they build websites and they're fantastic. And I just sort of hit him up with it. I'm like, hey, do you think that we could get a small team together and build a website in a weekend? And he went back and forth for 10 or 15 minutes, and he's like, oh, yeah, I think you convinced me we could do it. And I'm like, what about 2? He's like, well, I guess if you had another team, yeah, and then when it's 4, 8, and until I got to about 50, and that was when I realized like that was a close to impossible thing to pull off, but still potentially could happen. And so together we came up with the first event. We hosted it here in Atlanta in October of 2015. It went so well that we decided to create an organization around this and really go after it. So fast forward now 2 years later. This year we're doing an event in 2.5 weeks in Boston. Then we'll be in Minneapolis in September, Atlanta again in October, and then New York in November. So we're doing 4 cities this year. Next year we're going to start international. So we're going to London, and then we're working on the rest of the agenda. The big goal is by 2025 to have 48 of these events running on the same weekend globally. If we do that, we'll be delivering over 75 million of donated services in a weekend to nonprofits around the world with over 10,000 volunteers. So it became this thing that's now, I've got 2 full-time employees at it. It's growing, and it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome. Well, so how can the listeners get involved?
Yeah.
Because obviously we have a lot of people that can actually probably help you. So where can they go, or what can they do?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So 48in48.org is the website, and people can sign up to volunteer for sure in Atlanta. So again, it's coming up in October. But also if there's companies that want to get involved, what's happened now is that it's become this great team building and sort of internal effort within a lot of agencies actually, but also like Delta sends 10 or 15 people. So teams like to come from companies, so it can be great for that. Sponsorship, so all this is volunteers, so we look for sponsorship to pay for the thing. So volunteers, sponsorship, or if you have a nonprofit that you know or run, certainly have them apply, because we're always looking for good nonprofits.
Awesome. And give us the URL again.
Yeah, 48in48.org.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right, so everybody, you got to go to 48in48.org. And
you should come and do one of your podcasts over the weekend.
I would love to. Yeah,
love for you to come.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. I'd love to, man. You let me know. I'll be there. And
awesome.
Then we'll vlog about it too, and we'll reach
Perfect.
2 more people.
And that'll be me listening both
there
times.
You go. Both times. Like, yes.
Well, I do want to say congrats on the success of this platform. I think it's great. I've listened to a ton of them. I think it's awesome. I enjoy the conversation. So. Hey, in another 3 years, you can have me back.
There you go. Yeah, man. It's exciting, man. I tell every agency they should be podcasting. I mean, literally, it is just, even just for the fact of reaching out to people for guests and creating those kind of relationships. And you can do that with, Coca-Cola or Aflac or whoever. Like, if I could go back in time, if I was doing if I wasn't enjoying this as much as I was, and I was creating an agency again, you could bet my bottom dollar I'd be doing a couple podcasts.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And it's part of the reason that I blog as much as I do, because it does also force you to have thought. Like, it has you and I discussing this. I don't think I'd ever put together that the 3 big mistakes I've made so far at Dragon Army were all around due diligence and taking my time with decisions. So now, all right, this is awesome. So now I'm going to go forward. So yeah, I think any sort of discipline on making yourself think and put stuff out there, I think is huge. And then, there's so many side benefits as well.
And the cool thing too is you have a documented progression. Like literally, I always joke around at like my first videos, I look like a hostage. I literally and some of the lighting was like, I looked like a Oompa Loompa. Like literally my face was purple. And
that's awesome.
And and literally the podcast that we did together, it was over Google Hangout. So literally, I was using the iPhone mic. There was no professional camera that you see here or anything like that. And literally, I don't want technology to stop people from, doing these things or being afraid what people think. But you got to document. All right, cool. Well, everybody go to 48in48.org. And Jeff, let me know when you guys have that in Atlanta, and we'll do it. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man.